Hey, yo, good morning, world. It is still I, the same guy. You know, I might look a little different. I wonder what that's about. Well, it's a lovely post-storm Sunday. No, it's not even the weekend. What am I talking about? It's Tuesday. It's a lovely post-storm Tuesday morning this summer. And, yeah, I cut my locks. Whoa. You never know that people can just, experience change by their own hands, you know? I was talking with my stylist when I got my locks cut on Friday a couple days ago, and she had said something along the lines of it feels really empowering and almost like spiritual to be able to choose, major changes for yourself instead of having to respond to trauma or something along those lines. And although I am navigating a summer of trauma due to the accident earlier this season, this choice to cut my locks was instilled long before the accident. I was reflecting on it when I was journaling, and I'd had my locks for 10 years, a full decade with the same style of hair. And while I enjoyed having locks upon my head for many of those years, I think towards the end I started to get a little bored of them in a way that, the way I put it was, the locks, I only could look the way that I wanted to for a very short period of time. I was only able to really experience having good looking hair from my perspective for a couple of days, and then the rest of the 4 or 5 weeks I was kind of dealing with not as attractive hair as I wanted it to be. So I made the decision this year to cut them off when I celebrated my 10 years, and it just so happened that was last week. So here we are. Brand new look, brand new feeling, and that's what I want to talk about today. Is my partner used a great phrase called responsible novelty, and then I followed up with an equally good phrase of calculated risks. So as human beings, I feel like we are intrinsically wired to want to experience new. With our brains that recognize patterns and predictability, yes, we value those things, but in these modern times, we also find ourselves drawn to novelty, to new, whether it's a new look, a new experience, a new restaurant, a new album, a new car, a new product, a new way of thinking. All those things you've probably experienced yourself and are I do new. Why is it that, perfect example, I used to work at the mall, right? And sneakerheads are the perfect example of maybe not always responsible, but responsible novelty. Whenever there's a new shoe drop, especially Jordans back in the day, there was a massive line of people. They had saved up. They would sit there and go in, purchase their shoe, and then they would come to my store, which was Lids, and then they would want to match up their newly purchased shoes with a hat that might have coincided with the same or similar look. And that right there blew my mind, because I'm not really a sneakerhead. As you can see, I'm just wearing sandals. But it blew my mind that every month that they would want to come get new shoes. And it wasn't that they needed new shoes, it's that they wanted it. The idea of having a newer look, a newer style, a new thing, just it really taps something deep within us. So when I think about the concept of responsible novelty, I imagine that when we are utilizing that pattern brain and predictability, we sometimes start to like lose a sense of like the magic, as we call it. We lose that like internal connection that makes us feel like, ooh, I'm excited to do this. There's there's a less amount of curiosity when we are doing something that we know about versus like experience something new. New niche like triggers things in our brains. I don't know exactly what it triggers, but it triggers things in our brains that cause the brain to probably work and operate in a fashion that it might not have for a while. So it has an opportunity to like rework and rewire itself. And I think that that is what is very good about novelty, is that you are giving your brain and your mind and your spirit an opportunity to experience something different, and through that experience you can like through that experience you can, you know, experience something else. So now the challenge though is, especially in our product driven society, is that novelty will be sold to us as a necessity. And especially when that necessity is tied to hello frog, when that necessity is tied to like it will enhance or better your life. Like that's what every commercial is. If you look at any marketing scheme, you will notice that they all present you with a life before the product, and that life is okay, but it's not that great. But then the product, this new thing, will come out, and that surely is gonna make your life better. Like that's the whole concept of any selling point. It's like, this product will make you better. This new thing will improve your life. And sometimes that is very true. Sometimes the products that we see absolutely make our lives better. But oftentimes it might just be reselling something that has already existed to us, and it just might have like a shinier coat of paint on it. Who knows? It's strange. But I think that when it comes to like novelty from within, like the idea of rebirth, I've been really focusing on that in my recovery, especially in the mental aspect of like, okay, well, if I experience like a brush with death in this accident, then like I kind of came to, and I've been experiencing a concept of feeling like I'm rebirthed. Like this is another chance. It's like not necessarily saying the slate is wiped completely clean of who I am, but in the effort to embrace novelty, I have prepared and presented conditions in my life that will allow that novelty to really feel big, not just on like one aspect, but like all across the board. And I think as humans, we kind of need that. Like we all kind of need like not necessarily a full slate clean, but we need an opportunity to take the eraser to our own stories every now and then and freshen it up and put another draft on it. And I think that that's good for the psyche. It can be good for our individual relationships. It can be good for communal relationships, because like it's like if our lives were whiteboards, and every time we marked on them, like sure, we might keep some of the markings there. Some of the markings are already there. Some of the dimensions of the board are already presented and laid out for us, so we can't make changes to that. But if we kept every single line and every single mark on that whiteboard, then like we'd be pretty much up the creek. Like our boards would be covered and we wouldn't know what to make sense of anything. So sometimes, like, taking that eraser to some things, giving ourselves the slate to kind of wipe clean to some degree feels good, and then we're ready to pick the marker back up again and start putting newer markings on there. And that's that responsible novelty. Is that I'm not, instead of me going and buying a brand new car that I don't need and it's going to put me into debt, I can do something that still honors like the newness and gives me that spirit of like, oh, I did something new today, but also doesn't push me so far out into the unknown that I lose footing or traction or lose direction. So that is again why I got like something stuck in my foot here. There we go. That's why responsible novelty is so key. And I think that like cutting your hair on your own terms is a great way to do that. I mean, we see that with like hair dye, which might be something that comes around later. Who knows? But it's those things that allow us to feel good and gives us like a breath of fresh air. It might present us with a new perspective. Like sometimes it's a new person or a new thing that allows us to like look back at the old things and have a renewed sense of pleasure and joy with them. And I think that we often see this in Hollywood and movies, especially movies of the love and romance category, is that like a new person will like shake up the order, and your main character will then start to view other aspects of their lives with a renewed sense of understanding after experiencing something new come in. Do they always do it ethically? That's debatable. But I think the other thing that goes along with responsible novelty is calculated risks. And I think calculated risks is even broader than just tackling like doing new things. I talk with my therapist about this, is just the way that I decide if I'm going to experience a thing is like I try and weigh out the pros and cons of it all. Like, if I did this, how would it feel? Am I prepared to like experience the worst case and the best case? And if I can experience something within those, if I can deal with the worst case of a thing and I can deal with the best case of a thing, then that right there is a calculated risk, and I feel comfortable taking that risk. I think it's also great because in the essence of taking risks, you again don't want to do something that's gonna push you so far out that you mess up, or and it's not even mess up, but that you like get to a point that's worse than where you were. That can be whether it's having difficult conversations with friends, lovers, and community. You can take calculated risk with your finances, with trips and purchases. You can take calculated risks with yourself, where it's like a calculated risk for me might be like, I've got some extra money. I think I want to try a new restaurant today. Let me weigh and see, like, do I have the means to do this? If so, like, I'm ready to take this plunge and do something new. But before just taking an impulsive leap, there is already a conversation being done within to weigh out the pros and cons, the risks and rewards of each. And I think that when we take calculated risks, what's more important to me is what's more important to me is not necessarily always the result of the risk, because results are not 100% and directly correlated with the risk. Like, yes, if I want to get a thing, I probably have to do a thing, but there's so many variables that go into the result that we shouldn't be too tightly bound to them. What we should really be focusing on is the act of the risk. to be able to take the risk. Because that right there is where the real magic and agency and positive, like, feedback, I guess, lies. Is the fact that, like, I am comfortable making a decision, and I'm not like, of course I want the decision to go a certain way, but I really don't have as much control over the final result as I thought I would. But what I can be in control of is the decision I make. And if I make the decision, I might put myself in a position where I have a higher chance and probability of reaching the desired result. But if I never take the decision, then I definitely for sure know that I'm not going to reach that result. And that right there is part of the power of taking risks, is that you kind of got to just move out there on a little bit of faith. You got to have a little hope. You got to go, well, I don't really know how it's going to turn out, but I know if I do this, I'll get a higher chance of it turning out the way I want to. So that's why we shouldn't be too locked into the results. But I think, unfortunately, we live in a society, especially here in the West, the far West, we live in a society where, like, that's not always told to us. Instead, ever since grade school, we're graded on the results of our things. We're never graded on our ability to try a thing. It's always the result that we've been focused on. It's the result that people look at. It's the result that people judge and base their opinions about us on. And while some of those results I get, but also it's like we're overlooking we're overlooking the power of taking the risks. And I wonder what we would be like if we lived in a society that prioritized risk taking as opposed to reward seeking. And I think we see that with some demographics because they're able to take calculated risks more and more because they have safety nets and privilege and an insurance that even if they mess up, that they have this like backing to fall on. So the risk can be taken, more and more risk can be taken because guess what? Like, I'm gonna be good later. So that's also why results are not the best thing to focus on, because once again, there's a skewed understanding of what calculated risks are. Like, some people just have the means, whether they earn it themselves or not, to take more risks. But we still have to be able to embody it at some point in our lives, because if we don't, it's just a beautiful ray of sun like hitting here. You see it, it just looks like but that's what we need. Like that right there, that little glint of sun. I take this path all the time. This morning, I get to see that and experience it, and it looks so much more alive because the rain has fallen, there's mist in the air, like it just feels like a magical experience right now. And again, like it's the perfect example of responsible novelty and calculated risks. Maybe, but like I decided, like, hey, you know, why wait till this afternoon when it's super hot to come take this walk? I instead would rather walk now. Let me take that risk and see what it's looking like, even though I might change my schedule around for the day. But then I get to experience something new on a familiar path that allows me to look at it with a renewed perspective. So, and also walking into new spider webs here. So, in closing, I think that we need to keep practicing both of those elements, responsible novelty and calculated risk. I think the combination of those two things working in tandem and in harmony with each other will open up the door for us to not only experience a greater sense of our agency, which is super important as a human being to be able to like have the concept of choice, but it will also allow us to expand the reality of our lives. And if we do that, like, who knows what we might uncover? We might just get a fresh fresh start. You feel me? You feel me? So go get fresh today.